This is a presentation of the Sports Source Digital Network, presented by Hearthside Bank.
Welcome to Sports Source. This is Hardball, the pilot episode. I'm Will Heflin, VFL. I'm joined by Andrew Lee, VFL, two-way, right-handed pitcher, left-handed hitter, Washington Nationals draft pick. On this side, I'm joined by AJ Simcox, VFL, shortstop, Detroit Tigers draft pick. We are coming to you today to chop it up, talk about Tennessee's hot start, what's upcoming. Please bear with us. Our hope is that you listen to this and you see and listen to three guys chopping it up about baseball, obviously know about Tennessee's program, and enjoy it as much as we enjoy talking about it. So, AJ, 20-0.
20-0. That's a heck of a start. Saw a stat the other day. It's the best start from a defending national champion of all time, topping LSU, which I know that's a hot topic because it's kind of the new rivalry, Tennessee and LSU baseball. Overview, it's been incredible so far. They've got a couple transfers that have come in that have been phenomenal, hit the ground running. Some freshmen that have come in, hit the ground running, and some key pieces back from last year's team. I feel like it's pretty quick for them to blend the way that they have and be off to that 20-0 start. It's pretty special.
Yeah, a lot of that is you're playing some non-conference tune-ups, if you will, but went to Houston, had a really good showing there, and then top 10 Florida comes into your place, and you sweep them to open up SEC play. So, you guys know baseball is more of a marathon than a sprint, but I just think about it's a 56-game season, you're already through 20, and you're unblemished. So, how does this set you up just thinking about as you get further into SEC play? You may look back and think, wow, it was really good that we got that third win against Florida or some of those, non-conference wins, just RPI-wise.
More than anything, that Florida series, especially the sweep, was so impressive. Florida's also been red hot. And then the Sunday game was trending in the worst direction there for a little bit. Had kind of a sloppy inning, Jay dropped that ball in left field. We had the potential diving play at shortstop that we didn't convert on. And then we had another play in right field that we couldn't convert on. All of a sudden, big inning. You thought, okay, this is where we hit, the tough part of the weekend. All of a sudden, battle back, commanding win, and just what a dominant weekend, especially from the pitching staff in particular.
It was. We'll get into Florida a little bit more, but all of those games, regardless of the final score, were hanging in the balance at some point. It was 1-0.
They found a way to win.
Yeah, it was 1-0 for 6.5 innings on Saturday.
That's a credit to the clubhouse that they've kind of developed, right? That they've established their personality as a team, as a coaching staff, that it's not I hope we win. Maybe when they first got here it was. Now it's we fully expect to win, and majority of the time they're going to find a way to win.
Okay, so close games. You guys both your whole tenure was under Serrano. I had the luxury of 1 year under Serrano and then 4 years with Tony Vitello. And we had a hot start under Serrano, and we had some hot starts under Vitello. So this year actually topped my 2019 bunch at 15-0 for best start in program history. What do you guys see that's maybe different? Because, you both played at a very high level, and you know how tough the conference is.
Yeah. Well, I think our 2014 team had, before y'all broke it, had the record for the hottest start.
How many was it?
I think it was 11 or 12, something like that.
I thought we got to 13 at one point.
Maybe. We had, I think our first loss was at Arizona State. We went and took 2 out of 3, and then we were up to top 10 in the country. So we had a hot start. The season did not continue that way. We had a couple injuries and a couple other things that happened, and we ended up tanking. But, the old joke in the SEC is, right, it's just don't get swept. If you don't get swept, you're good, and then if you can sweep someone, when you're consistently at the top of the standings, that's not as big of a deal. But when you're fighting kind of in that middle, because typically it seems like 2 or 3 teams always separate themselves. And then you've got, there might be a 3-game difference come the end of the SEC play between the 4th best team and the 12th best team.
Yeah.
Very similar to basketball this year. Everyone's talking about how dominant the basketball conference has been, and it has been, but it's kind of been baseball for the last 10 years. I don't think enough people talk about that. So kind of what Tony and them have been doing has been incredible. But no, I mean, I think a lot of it's expecting to win. And then the one thing that they have going for them, and then the one thing that they're going to have to figure out is right now you got your Friday guy and your Saturday guy penciled in, and then you've got the really good freshman, you got AJ Russell coming back. So that Sunday piece, they'll kind of figure that out. Frank and Tony have done a great job of that every single year, kind of piecing together, getting everything moving the right direction, and then really finalizing it and riding the momentum where they want to go. And you got a couple freshmen that are off to crazy good starts. Will they be able to keep it up when SEC play comes? You never know. And there's always going to be probably 2 to 3 change-ups throughout the lineup over the course from the beginning of the SEC play to the end of it. I mean, that's just kind of how it is. I feel like every team I played on, every team you probably played on, there was, for the most part, 4 or 5 cogs in the lineup. And then after that, it was kind of flip of the coin who was going to stay.
Yeah, I think there's still definitely some spots to solidify, which, I mean, speaking of a freshman, Jay Abernathy certainly took a step to locking up left field, and we'll see what they decide to do with him in the lineup. I know they've been pretty steadfast 1 through 5 so far, but it's hard not to think at some point maybe he moves into the leadoff spot and you kind of see what kind of spark plug he can be there. But you're right, like there's definitely a freshman wall.
Yeah.
And can they push through that like Dean Curley did last year, hit the wall and then got a second win late? We'll just have to see. I mean, there's some veteran guys like Bargo right now who had really good weekends, but they just can't play every day.
There's 9 spots in the lineup.
Yeah,
they have so much depth.
There's 9.
I mean, it's good problems to have.
What a luxury. I mean, they're pinch hitting guys that would start on majority of the teams in the country, much less the SEC.
Yeah.
And then to have freshmen that are taking the at-bats that both Jay and Manny Marin are taking, seeing them in person, especially runners on base, like stressful situations, running deep counts, getting on base, scoring runs.
Seasoned at bats, yeah.
And in your first SEC series, which it helps that it was at home, so maybe less butterflies, but to make that kind of statement for them early on was super impressive to me.
How interesting is that Tennessee wins the national championship and then the following year gets a home SEC series to open? Not something we ever did when I was there. I imagine.
Honestly, I don't even remember with us how it was. Of course, we were never at that level, so we never factored that in.
Maybe we opened up at home once, but I remember opening at Ole Miss, opening at South Carolina one year. Like, we opened at Georgia my last year. Like, there just didn't get home SEC series to open the year. How important is that?
We opened our freshman year up at Bama, and I only remember that because Spencer Turnbull was the Friday night guy for them, and he ended up being my teammate with the Tigers. And so we would go back and forth on that. But, I mean, it is huge, especially I feel like, they're packing out Lindsey Nelson. Tony talks all the time. I mean, everyone is on top of the field. It's a pretty rowdy environment. They got the student section standing room only in right field now to
that looks good.
Create a little bit even more. I don't know, but I also feel like this team really enjoys going on the road because they're a little bit.
They always do under him because he's an Italian.
They got a little bit of personality, a little bit of spunk. Some might say arrogance. I don't know, but well earned, well deserved, and I think that's part of the reason why they're so good.
Yeah.
There's nothing that they can see that'll make them back down.
It's almost like a WWE story. We went from being like underdog to everyone hating us, and now they've almost embraced being the bad guys, especially on the road.
Yeah.
Like they want to take it to someone in their house, which is not the most usual thing, especially for a group that has to re-gel every year now in the NIL era. And that's one thing that's super impressive to me about the team as a whole and then the coaching staff. It feels like there is no lag from year to year. And the supporting cast is always different, especially the last 3 years, going from, the Drew Gilbert, Jordan Beck team, the Christian Moore, Blake Burke team, and now this team.
Yeah.
But they always have someone that's kind of the rowdy guy leading the bunch, and they have no issue with being the bad guy.
Well, they've also kind of got the perfect storm now too, right? Like they've had the level of success, and then you've got the transfer portal. And so, the pieces that you do lose everyone wants to come here because it's proven that everyone loves the coaching staff.
Yeah.
The coaching staff develops at a crazy high level. Q's probably the best in the business. Actually, not probably. Q is the best in the business as far as strength and conditioning, and then just mentorship off the field. You've got Woody, who's been here since I was 2 years old in the dugout as a bat boy.
Head trainer, if you're not
head
privy to
trainer.
Woody.
Yeah, and I mean they've just got everything rolling. So you have those 4 or 5 key pieces coming back. You go and you pluck a guy from here, 2 guys from Ole Miss. The previous years you pluck a guy here, pluck a guy there. It fills those gaps pretty quickly, and then they're recruiting at such a high level because high school kids want to come here too and get developed. You keep a couple guys from going to the draft that probably could have had a couple commas in their bank account.
Yeah.
Guys that when you were there, they were signing, but you didn't have the pull to bring them to school. And now NIL helps with that too and the success. But, I mean, now you've got a couple freshmen in the mix too, and, I mean, you've got depth on depth on depth. And it's just a well-run machine.
It was perfect storm because you gave the best recruiter in the country an extra avenue to go recruit in the portal, which it is crazy how it all has come together. Let's jump into the weekend specifically. Let's dig into Florida a little bit before we look ahead. We'll just kind of go game by game. Thinking back to Friday, Liam Doyle really had to labor.
Yeah.
Florida came in with a game plan of Hayward. We know his stuff is so good, may not, hang a 3 spot on him, but if we can get him out before, the 6th or the 7th, we've got a chance. And they did that.
Yep.
And then Tennessee goes to the bullpen because Doyle's pitch count was way too high. They just fouled balls off constantly. And then you go to Tanner Franklin, who's kind of been the piggyback guy. And for the majority of Fridays so far this year, that's been either run rule or 9th inning. It was like Doyle Franklin, and that was pretty much Friday, and then you figured it out from there. Mm-hmm. But it didn't go well for Franklin. They kind of singled him to death. And then you go to your next guy, Loy, who has been, we'll talk about him when we turn around and talk Sunday because that was his day, but he got an out, and then they went to Snead. At that point, it was like, okay, all of our chips are on the table. It's Friday night, and Florida threw Peterson, who could be a top 5 pick next year, and McNeely, who's one of the best relief arms in the SEC. So Friday, classic, tight ball game. I think back to the slide at second base, which is a big play, but one that Tennessee's been banged on, certainly in the past. I remember back to my first Hoover game in 21 against Alabama. Max Ferguson was called for the same rule, so no apologies given by me for that one. But kind of a hang-in-the-balance game. You get some freshmen contributing right away. Abernathy and Marin kind of tag team to score that first run. And it just felt like just a fulfilling game because it wasn't easy, but you came out with the win. Yep. And so what, if anything else, was y'all's kind of big takeaway from Friday? Well,
they battled, and then, like you said, obviously you want Doyle to go 5, 6, 7 innings as much as you can Friday night. You got to get your horse going. You got to save the bullpen for Saturday and Sunday, right?
But they didn't save the
bullpen. They didn't. They didn't. And it didn't work. Yeah. And they relied on the 3 main guys out of the bullpen. So to me, that's, as we track down the SEC season, that's where we're going to really learn about this team. We were talking about the 22 team before, and I don't think they ever really had that luxury because it kind of was in cruise control almost every single game, right? There weren't many high leveraged innings on the back end of all of those games. And I think this team will experience something similar to that. But I do think throughout the course of the SEC season, there's going to have to be a couple guys that step up. And they've got the pieces, right? Frank's going to develop. Tony's going to recruit. They've got the guys in the bullpen. It's just going to be mixing and matching and kind of finding out who is who and what they can do. And everything that they're doing right now is to figure out how to get it to that final destination at the end where all of the pieces are aligned.
Yeah. I think one piece of that puzzle is going to be finding somebody who's a stopper or the firefighter, so to speak, that's not Nate Snead. Because he's already at 19 innings so far in the year. Obviously, they're going to ride him on the back end of those games. Yeah. But if you can save him an inning or two or bring him in the 8th and the 9th versus the 6th, 7th, 8th, and the 9th like we had to the other day, find somebody who can come in when things are a little bit crazy, maybe limit the damage to 1 or 2 runs or put a stop to it. I think if we can get like one more stopper, maybe 2, that can just be come in, put out the fire real quick,
Yeah.
get us to that back end. That's going to be major key. And I know at different points last year we had different people. We always had Nate on the back end, but at certain times in the season, Aaron Combs was that guy. Obviously, we always had Kirby Cannell on the back end too. But finding one person who can just quiet the game down, keep those 3 and 4 run innings maybe to a 1 or a 2,
and quieting the game down too. Right, it was a really close game, and then Hunter Inslee came up clutch with that base hit down the right field line, scored 2, and kind of busted it open, and then everyone kind of settled in and relaxed. So the freshman had the first couple big ABs, got that run in, and then Hunter, Mr. Reliable at the end. Came in and kind of calmed everything down.
Guy loves playing against Florida. That was the series that got him going last year. Saturday, Marcus Phillips, and then
do you need to say anything else?
The 9 spot and the 7th. I mean, really, so Florida's guy, Aiden King, was toe-to-toe with Phillips, and his pitch count got to a point where they brought him out sooner, and then Tennessee just ran away with it. And it sounds simple, but Florida's got just as many horses in the pen as Tennessee does. But I think in that inning, the biggest deal to me was starting with Jay and then Curley, Keelan, and Inslee. 4 straight guys reach full count. Jay walked, Curley reached full count, and then hit the double that cleared the bases. That was kind of the first dagger. And then Keelan did the same thing and then walked. And then I think Inslee walked. And then Bargo hit the double. And then Chapman hit the homer. And the game was over. And it was like, okay, just 4 in a row, grinded out at bats.
So what is it from a pitcher's point of view? Because obviously, as a hitter, like that's phenomenal.
It's miserable.
You're getting a quality at bat. But like, I mean, how demoralizing is that for y'all?
Absolutely
it's miserable.
You've been on both sides of it.
Well, and as a hitter, you're like you're just in survival mode. You're fighting for your life. As a pitcher, you're like, dude, what do I got to do?
Yeah.
Like, I've thrown everything at this point, and then you end up stretching the zone maybe a little bit more than you want to, trying to get like a swing and a miss. Well, then you're racking up ball 2, ball 3, ball 4. And then to lose that at bat, like a 10, 12 pitcher, number one, you just ran your pitch count up. You're getting tired inning-wise. Number 2, you are just defeated. Yeah. And then it's like you try to pick yourself up, but it's definitely not the same juice that you had.
It always seems like after those long at-bats, that's when you've got the 15 hopper that goes through the 4-hole, or the rollover ground ball that gets in the 6-hole too.
I mean, the one Curly hit, he smoked it, but if they're shaded a little more towards the line, maybe no doubles.
Yeah,
it could have been a double play, but at that point, it's a 1-0 game. You kind of have to be
You're
aggressive.
Not going no doubles in that
Florida.
situation.
Yeah. So just interesting how that one played out.
Yeah.
Sunday, classic SEC Sunday. That thing is not over until the umpires leave the field. Back and forth. Tennessee goes back to Nate Snead late, and he was arguably the MVP of the whole weekend. But, you kind of mentioned on it earlier that you're down 4-1, and that the at-bat that I kind of took away from it was Peebles. Probably the slowest starter of guys that were penciled in to be contributors and guys to carry the load. And Stone Lawless got a start for the second straight day at catcher. And so if you're Peebles, it's easy to kind of be like, golly, like, am I really losing this job again?
Mm-hmm.
Like, came in last year, it was supposed to be his job, and Cal Stark ran away with it.
Yep.
And then, you haven't been great. But they kind of said after the game that the original plan was to split it. Peebles gets in later in the game and smokes a double off the wall to then Tennessee was down 1 to now you're up 1. That had to feel good. Like, just long term, if there's something, if you're looking at one guy take away from the weekend, for Peebles to struggle on Friday and then do that on Sunday, like, that's a big deal to me, because you're thinking about, okay, this is somebody we really need down the line, and he just hasn't clicked. Because, like, NC State, his freshman year, he hit 16 jacks, over 300.
Freshman
All-American. And then since getting here, it's been a struggle. And you can see it, it's all there, but like, and you know the struggles of SEC hitting just as much as anybody, but like, it's just a different beast, and it looks like he's trying too hard sometimes.
And that's the one thing I think he did a good job of, particularly last year at points, especially in the playoffs, and then he's doing to some extent this year. When you feel like you might be losing your job, it's so easy to try and make huge swings, try to make huge plays happen when you get your opportunities. And I feel like he's done a better job this year of trying to take some better at-bats. Walks, deeper counts, specifically that at-bat. And I'll give him credit for that because when you're coming in off the bench, the number one thing you're thinking in your mind is like, I'm going to hit a jack right here, right? Like, I'm going to come in, I'm only getting one at-bat this game, I'm going to make my mark. And I feel like that's one thing that he's been better about this year. He knows that his role may be a little bit more limited than what he had expected, especially with Stone starting 2 games. But he's done a really good job of moving forward and trying to create positives out of that instead of trying to make it, one big swing.
Well, and 2 things to build off that. Like, baseball is the ultimate humbling game, right? Well, you just said he was a freshman All-American at NC State. Last year is probably the first time he struggled at that level. Mm-hmm. Yeah, ever.
Yeah.
And so think of the maturity and the growth from the experiences he had last year to this year. He's much better equipped to handle a situation like that where, hey, if it's not off to a great start, just kind of keep going. And he has the luxury of playing the position that is a grind, right? So, like, the staff is going to want 2 reliable guys back there they can kind of spread out the burden of that position so they're not wearing one guy out come May and June. If you can get 2 guys back there that you trust and that can perform, that's a head coach's dream,
But by that point in the season, don't you kind of want it to be
You do.
A one main guy?
Yeah, you do by towards the end of it.
Yeah.
But throughout the SEC play, you're going to, all of the teams that we played on, the teams that my dad and Coach D had, they always tried to have 2 really good catchers. You'd have a guy that typically caught Friday and Sunday, and then a guy that would catch Saturday. Mm-hmm. And if there wasn't much of a drop-off, then that was best case scenario.
Yeah, for sure. Other thing, last point about this weekend, can't leave without saying Dylan Loy was phenomenal on Sunday.
Yep.
Came in, slammed the door, gave Tennessee a couple innings to get back in it, and then extend the lead. Probably the one guy on Tennessee staff that threw this weekend that's not 97 plus. And maybe that's why I'm partial to him. Pigeon Forge native. He's 88, 90, but his breaking ball is sharp, and he's just one of those guys that's just, here it is, good luck. And he's got some deception. Like, it's good stuff. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. He's not, some charity case out there.
There's some metrics behind what you see on the scoreboard.
Yeah, the guys don't swing at it as if it were 88, right? And he's just one of those guys, which is nice. But you talk about needing another stopper. I think him and Snead for sure, and then Franklin, I still very high on him. The stuff is too good, just probably a bad weekend. And then if you can add, 1 or 2 more guys that you trust.
And we know we got Russell coming back too.
Yeah,
so what will his role be eventually?
Yeah, I think they want him to start.
Will that be a starter, and then but that pushes Coons to the back end too,
which is
stuff is obviously
don't have a problem with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they've got a lot of tinkering, but a lot of pieces that they can figure out.
There's a ton of depth there.
Yeah, good problems to have.
This episode of Sports Source Hardball is brought to you by the Garza Law Firm. There's nothing more important than finding a proven local attorney when you need one most. That's Marcos Garza. Marcos is also a huge supporter of Tennessee baseball. Visit garzalaw.com to learn more. All right, so let's jump into Bama. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, short week. Nothing has told me that they will change the rotation in any way. Doyle will just move up a day. Phillips will move to Friday. And then Sunday, I would imagine, be Tegan Coons again. Bama swept A&M in College Station this weekend. They moved up to number 12 in the latest rankings. And they've got potential number 1 overall pick next year at shortstop in Justin LeBron, who's got 12 homers. He was leading the country. Need to see if that's still the case.
Yeah.
He's near the top. He's a phenomenal player. They pitched the crap out of it at A&M. Who is reeling? I get that. But you go on the road and win in Aggieland 3 games.
And the talent they have. I mean, they're preseason number 1.
Yeah, you're doing something right. So you guys didn't play in the new Bama Stadium, did you? Or
no.
Nope.
Okay, so my last year I played in the new Bama Stadium. Really nice. I imagine this will be the best attendance that they've had there in quite some time. Rob Vaughn, head coach there, doing a phenomenal job. Scouting report-wise, Thursday, it'll be Adams up against Doyle, who is a power lefty. He's 95, 97 from the left side. So huge showcase of talent. 2 teams that are 3-0. in the SEC standings. So what do you want to see first time on the road? What's a successful weekend to you guys?
I mean, winning a series, first and foremost, right? Like, that's always goal number one is to win.
Can it be successful if you don't, is I guess what
I mean, in baseball, it's a marathon of a season, right? It's not like football where you lose one game and the sky's falling. Baseball, you lose a series, you lose – as long as you – worst case is you get swept, right?
Yeah.
If you don't get swept, you go 1-2, it's not the end of the world. Honestly, it probably wouldn't be a terrible thing for this team. You learn a little bit more about yourself when you're losing. It's easy to when you're 20-0. I mean, it's easier to everything's good, everything feels great. The camaraderie in the clubhouse. You learn a little bit more about yourself when you start to scuffle a little bit. So, I mean, yeah, I think you could definitely have a successful weekend if you don't win the series. Now, will the players at the team, the coaching staff, and the fans look at it that way? Absolutely not. But in the long run, over the course of it, you can learn some very valuable lessons in that. With that being said, win the series.
It'll be more about how the games go, quality-wise, at-bats, pitching. If we lose 2 or 3 games by 1 run each, that's not a backbreaker. It's those ones when you get punched in the mouth that are hard to bounce back from. And honestly, sometimes those are more of a wake-up call. So that could be the one where, we get smacked on a Friday or Saturday where maybe our guy didn't have his stuff and their guy did. And if that's the case, that might be something where it's like, all right, let's see what we're made of the next day. And I'm not wishing anything ill on Liam. Let's say we come out on Friday, have a tough night. How does Marcus respond the next day as a starter? How does the bullpen respond now that they're short-staffed if we had a long Friday night? Things like that. Are the hitters going to be pressing after a loss? But best case scenario, we go in, keep the train rolling, 23-0 or 24-0, I guess, after the midweek.
That's where, like in baseball, those types of situations, I said win the series and it's a great weekend, right? But those types of situations are the type that you learn so much about your team. That gives Tony, Frank, Elander, that allows them to kind of figure out their roster, how they're going to kind of make everything click throughout the year.
Yeah.
And you just learn a lot about guys. The freshman gives them chances to grow up a little bit more and continue to press on and develop.
Tweak the dials.
Yeah.
I will say the last series that Tennessee has lost on the diamond was in Tuscaloosa to open SEC play last season.
Yep.
So I think while we all agree it would be good to see them face some adversity, not this weekend for me, not Bama, but no, it'll be good to see them on the road for the first time, a true road game.
Yep.
But appreciate you guys chopping it up, enjoyed it. Again, we appreciate everybody for listening. Like and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate you a ton. Look forward to talking about it next week, chopping it up and seeing how Tennessee did in Tuscaloosa.
Go Vols.
Go Vols.